Hi guys, this is Mike with 850 ArmorWorks. I'm going to be bringing you a video today on the ShoreTrooper and Tank Trooper calf assemblies. This will cover the full assembly of the basic shin and calf and onto the front shin assembly and the rubber straps that go around and adhere. It's a multi-step process. It's going to be a little bit of an odd video because I was working on a tanker here and one of our breakers flipped because I was using the heat gun in that video. The video was corrupted, so I wasn't able to save it. So thankfully we have another set here for an actual ShoreTrooper instead of the tanker. And I can commence on assembly and see this is pretty close to what the finished product will be. We'll jump back onto these after I go over the basic assembly on the calves and the sorting of it out. So a little prelude from the last video I had. I have no problem, abusing ABS parts. Once they're together, they're pretty much together. I'm going to switch our view here so that we can get a little bit of both and you have a direct line to seeing me. So after our parts are trimmed, what we need to do is figure out which ones are the left and the rights. And the insides have a little point. So we're looking at the left inside here, and we'd be looking at the right inside here. So that's going to, let me just put that on the right so I don't get too confused. So now we have the left outside together and the right here together. So let's start with the left since it's in my hand. As with all things we do, we're pretty much doing super glue and accelerator. You can use other means, but the number one deal here is to always prep your surfaces, always sand. So now we have to determine which side we're going to sand and glue together because there are certain ways that I like these to fit personally. We're dealing with the left outside here. So in this case specifically, on the rear, I want the outer shell to be the overlap side. So this inner shell is going to glue here. So we know we are sanding the outside and the inside here. I'll go ahead and sand that with some 80 grit paper. And the other video that I did with the tankers, I actually had to show you where I had to cut off some areas with our trusty Craftsman straight snips from Lowe's. But this one specifically actually got slightly over trimmed here at the top. But with these, it really doesn't matter because the shin plate is going to be covering everything up. Another thing to cover too is since we're just doing overlap assembly, you do have additional options for assembling these. If you have larger calves, you can butt join them in the front almost as much as you want to. And that's just because the shin piece will cover all that up. So that would give you a little extra room. There's not much of a reason to because these are already a very good size. They're bigger than your standard lineage type suits. We design all the armor basically to fit me first. And I'm 6'2", and I float anywhere between 200 and 235 pounds on a regular basis. So we make it work on me. We make it work on people that are 5'6". We make it work on people that are 6'5". It's always easier to trim than to add. So that's why we design armor systems like that. So per usual, we have our clamps, we have our 2P10 super glue and accelerator, and I'm going to run a nice heavy bead across this front surface. And I always start the alignment at the top with the molded in edges. So they will overlap very well. It's a little slick. I'm going to go ahead and just clamp this here in the top and work it down a little bit, applying pressure by hand. And just shoot in some accelerator to go ahead and get an instant cure. Hope it picked up that crackle because that one was awful loud. Now you're getting a chemical reaction when these two go together, so it makes a nice pure chemical bond. And that's it. 10 seconds later, we're good to go with that phase. And now we are on to the right, and same principles apply. I want this seam to be on the inside since we're going to be applying Velcro, so we want to take the right inside and overlap going this way, if you can see that. So we'll sand the inside of the right and the outside of the right. The outside and the inside. So we're going double inside, double outside. I guess that makes sense, doesn't it? It does help to have big fingers that you can spread across like this. But I also have to add that it's extremely painful for my hands to be in that position. All right. And that one's set in place just as well. Now, this is actually the spot on the video, on a last video, that, you know, died. Or started explaining the way our cover strips work. So the cover strips were designed to go on the outside rear for the ShoreTrooper. If you were doing the Stormtrooper, so let me go ahead and pick up the other leg, you take the same strip and apply it in the front. And since this is the left, you can see that's about how that would work. And the armor's designed to be trimmed from the bottom. So you're always going to need to trim up a little space up here. Even for me, it works out best. That's the way these were designed. If you're a taller guy, then lay it out on the bottom and you're good to go. But for the ShoreTroopers, you are not putting them on the front, period. You are putting them on the rear and the rear only. These cover strips specifically are cast open, so you're going to have a shiny side and you're going to have the casting side. And that's where we use our trusty belt sander, or you can use a palm sander and flatten it out, even it out as much as you can. Again, this is where the video came out because I was showing you about the resin. Use Smoothcast 65D. We found this is a very heat malleable resin. Lost my whole computer and studio cart because I flipped a breaker because I turned on the heat gun because it's cold in here because we have heaters going in several places running on the same circuit. But if you need to, you can take a hairdryer, you can take a heat gun, and you can warm up this entire strip and adhere it down the back. Now I'm going to move back onto the tanker since that was really on the workbench right now. You can see we've got a couple other kits in our boxes over here to be assembled. More than just a couple right now. We'll go back to white plastic and go ahead and affix this cover strip so we can move on to the next segment. So again, we want to make sure we're looking at our lefts and rights appropriately. The rears will interchange pretty easily. It's just going to be easier if you had aligned it the way I explained earlier in the video. So we know we're going to be putting it on this piece. So let's go ahead and just rough that up. And I'm going to go ahead and use multiple clamps here because this resin will conform. I'm going to use at least 3 clamps. I'm thinking I'll grab a 4th here. Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of these clamps, but they work. All right. So we are all set there. I'm already sanded and smooth and flattened back here. I've decided which side I want to be the top and the bottom. I want to go ahead and retain all the top detail, and I don't mind cutting it from the bottom. So we will do it that way. And get our super glue in. I still run pretty heavy with super glue. You know, you don't have to run as heavy as I do. I just like my stuff to be secure. So after I got the glue down, it's just gonna slip right off and be a pain for me right now because I wasn't in a very good working position. But we're gonna line it up on this back edge. I'm going to go ahead and clamp it down here so I can have a free hand to adjust. And I'm going to work the strip at an angle to follow this curve. I don't know how much of that you just saw, but I really contorted and flexed this strip here to get it in place. And I'll grab it section by section and just get a little super glue and accelerator in there to make sure that these get a nice chemical bond together. And it looks like we have good adhesion all around. This one's still a little bit straight. I'm not going to turn on the heat gun right now and shut down our computer cart and have to do all this again. But if you need a little bit more, you could just take the hairdryer or the heat gun and start flexing this back out a little bit. So the Velcro is going to go here, and we're going to have some Velcro in here. That's how the permanent closure is going to be. And we're just going to nip off this edge down here on the bottom once we're done with everything. We'll do all the dremeling once I get the other one installed. Turns out I didn't need that many clamps. But it is nice to have them there if you do need them. So we are back on the left outside. Determine that's the proper one to sand. Determine which side I want to do the top of. Doesn't really matter too much. Wipe off any excess dust. Now I'm going to go ahead and try to put a little pre-curve in this one. Don't beat it too hard, or don't bend it too hard. In fact, try not to trip over a bunch of cords. I'm just going to take it to my heater right here and just warm it up instead of using the heat gun. This is even lower than a hair dryer. So, but I can already feel it physically bending and changing. It doesn't take a whole lot of heat to affect 65D. But it's cold enough in this warehouse right now to affect quite a few things. And it really does feel good on your hands when your hands are freezing cold. That's just slightly more malleable. Let's see if we put a little curve on it. Just a little curve. Follow it down. Really works better with a heat gun. Or just summertime temperatures would do really well. Like if you open up your box and you see that these are kind of funny or distorted, that's why. Lay them out flat, put a book on them, and that'll flatten them back out over a little bit of time. So I'm gonna go ahead and get our glue in here. Already determined we want to line this one up at the top. fact, instead of clamping that, let's just give that contacted area a little bit of squirt of the super glue accelerator, and then we'll work our way. All right, and now we have another nice solid cover strip glued onto the back. If we need to get some more curve on it, we'll take the heat gun to it a little later and get a little bit more of this curvature back in here. But overall, she should be just fine. There we go. All right. So from here, we'll cut off the excess nubs, just using the Dremel tool with a fiberglass reinforced cutoff wheel. Well ventilated areas, use face masks, eye protection, all that normal fun safety stuff. I have glasses on and my lungs are probably dead anyway. So we're just going to go ahead and nip it level. And this is what we are looking at for the finished rear. Get my hand off of that. I can do a side-by-side comparison. There we go. Just a little bit cut off. Doesn't take too much. So that's going to do it for this segment of the ShoreTrooper and Tank Trooper Shins and Calves. Going to go ahead and close out this part of the video and restart another video so that we can focus in on how we need to align the fronts and start assembling the rest of the pieces.